Hi, everyone. Good evening, and welcome back to The Holy Humanist. I'm so sorry this interview has been a long time coming. Last time this was scheduled, there were some technical issues. Hopefully, we've got them all sorted today. But yeah, and today has just been a crazy day. And as some of you might already know, I started co-hosting the Sunday Scoop with Haris Sultan. Every Sunday, basically at 12 p.m. UK time. So that went out today. You're able to watch that live, or you can also become a member and watch that later if that time doesn't suit you. But yeah, so sorry, it's been a really hectic day. I had some family commitments after that. But now, without further ado, we have a very, very special guest with us today. This is a very much needed ex-Muslim voice. The guest today is from a Caribbean background. And so we've never spoken to an ex-Muslim before from a Caribbean background. I haven't personally. And he goes by the name of One Tawny Stranger. He joined the African Heritage Writers Group in 2014 and has since performed with them in numerous showcases and contributed several pieces to their anthology, 100 Years Unheard, which is very cool. He dabbles a lot in the creative field and space and does some very cool work. So we can also find out more about that. But without further ado, I'd like to invite One Tawny Stranger to Holy Humanist. Hi, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for agreeing to do this and sharing your voice and yeah, just for being here. And I'm so glad that we managed to sort it out and actually make this happen. So thanks a million. And honestly, I'm just so excited to kind of get cracking. So I've given a brief introduction about you, but I'll be honest, I really have no idea about the story and the kind of things just you're about to say to me. I have no idea about your story whatsoever, but I'm extremely excited to hear about it and kind of get into the nitty gritty of, some of the topical issues that come out of your story as like stark talking points. So yeah, if you could just kind of introduce yourself to the audience, give us a bit of like detail on your background, your family upbringing.
Okay. Well, first of all, hello everybody. I am One Tawny Stranger. Um, I come from a very unusual background. In fact, many people that I meet, I would describe my experience and my upbringing to them as anomalous, very unconventional. Because first of all, I was born here in England, but my parents are Jamaican, both of them like Afro-Caribbean, both mother and father. My dad was born in Jamaica directly. My mom was born here, but both of her parents are from the Caribbean, from Jamaica directly. So that kind of makes me, in a sense, kind of between generations. So on my dad's side, I'm first generation Caribbean immigrant, but from my mom's side, I'm second generation. Um, but I was born, like I said, I was born in England, and I've very rarely gone back to the Caribbean. Funny enough, I've been to Barbados more times than I've been to Jamaica, actually.
Don't blame you, but Jamaica's also amazing. But yeah,
Oh, it is, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely love the scenery.
honestly,
But
beautiful.
yeah, in terms of my upbringing, I was raised in East London for the vast majority of my life.
Mhm.
Um, and the story of how I came to be a Muslim is probably like the most anomalous aspect of it, because both of my parents were originally Christians. In fact, my dad was actually a priest. He was actually a priest in his church.
Wow.
But on my father's side, he became dissatisfied with Christianity after he um, went higher up the ranks in his church and realized that the other clergy members, that the other priests, they were hiding a lot of secrets from their congregation. And he
Mhm.
decided that he can't be in this religion anymore. So he decided to seek a religion that would be more open and truthful. And that's when he became Muslim. And as for my mother, she had never actually believed in Christianity properly as such. She'd always found it to be very self contradicting and not very satisfying for her personally. So at various at various points in her life, she was looking into other religions, became a Buddhist at one point, but she said it wasn't spiritual enough.
Right.
Oh
That's so interesting. Yeah.
yeah. then she converted to Islam, and then she met my dad as they were converting or thinking about converting to
Reverting.
Islam at the same time. And that's
Yeah.
literally how they met, in the same masjid, and then they got married and had me and my brother. So that's how I was born as a Muslim. So I was born into a Muslim family.
Okay.
And even though my parents divorced when I was really, really young, probably about 2 or 3 years old or so, and I've been living with my mum ever since. My mum remained a staunch Muslim like throughout all of my life. She has never doubted or questioned Islam in any way whatsoever. And as for me, considering that I was also, well, the child of two converts who were both very, very strict, especially since my dad became an imam after he became a Muslim.
Wow, he's been a priest and an imam.
Yeah, yeah, and
Wow.
a herbalist as well.
Oh, wow.
So I have some interesting things going on in my background, but yeah.
Yeah, to say the least.
But yeah, so even though my parents had divorced, my mum remained a very, very staunch and devout Muslim, like for my entire life. So I was raised with that typical kind of convert strictness of Islam. So I was literally praying 5 times a day, literally every single day, to the point where I don't believe I've ever missed a single prayer in my entire life.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Is this because your parents were so overtly religious? Like they were very practicing, you said, right? They were.
Yeah, but also
Okay.
but also because of the fact that the way I was raised, I was also very, very believing myself. So I had never had any doubts about Islam as such. Like when I was younger, my only doubts were about whether I was following it properly. But I never doubted that Islam was like true or anything like that. And
Okay.
as such,
Sorry, can I just stop you for 1 second, just because I don't want to forget this as we move forward with the story. But
Mhm.
so when your parents both converted or reverted, as Muslims like to say, to Islam,
Mhm.
was how did they find Islam? Were they already kind of exposed to the ideas, and then they were just, like, what was that process like for them? Did they just suddenly decide, like you said, your mom thought Buddhism wasn't spiritual enough, and she's now never questioned Islam, so did they just find Islam somehow and then it was immediately like their happy place and they just thought, yeah, this is for us?
To be completely honest, I don't know very, very much about my dad's side of the story
Okay.
because of the divorce.
Mm,
But as for my mum, it was basically just searching for it. She went out specifically searching for a religion that she felt would kind of mesh with her soul, psyche, spirit, whatever you want to call it. And
right.
she considered Islam to be the one. And well, when I was younger, she told me a personal story that happened to her around about the time that she was considering converting to Islam. That when she was kind of living, like when she had like just moved like into her own place, there was this green bird that would come and like sit on her balcony ever since she started reading the Quran and started like thinking about becoming a Muslim. And the day that she converted to Islam, that bird never came back.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's what she used to tell me. And
Yeah.
to be honest, even as a child, I kind of felt a little bit like, like is that really kind of something that's like that can be taken as like some kind of miracle or sign, like the way she always interpreted it?
Hmm.
Because let's be honest, like we see green birds like flying around the place all over the place now.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of is like if you're looking for that some kind of sign to cement something, you will find it, and that's
Mm,
it just so happened to be a green bird in this case.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, okay, so sorry, you were saying that you then were very religious yourself and you never had missed a prayer or can remember
yeah,
missing a prayer.
yeah, yeah. I started fasting when I was 7 years old,
Wow,
and
okay.
I'm not talking about doing partial fasting. I was doing like the full, like from like well from Fajr to sunset, like ever since I was 7 years old, straight away.
Oh my God, in England as well, with like when it falls
Yeah,
in summertime, it's like a
yeah,
16-hour fast. That's
yeah. And my very
insane.
first fast was right in the middle of summer.
Oh, bloody hell. As a 7-year-old. Wow,
Yeah,
that.
I was extremely strict, and I was. What else was I doing? I was memorizing the Quran when I was 16. I'd memorized about 32 surah by the time I was 19.
Wow.
When I was in uni, I actually joined the Islamic Society and very nearly joined a terrorist group that was actually being promulgated through that Islamic Society.
Mhm.
Um, I
Yeah,
was, yeah,
that's
like I said,
a big
yeah.
problem, isn't it? Like at universities, because I actually was actively told by my parents not to join the Islamic Society because similarly to what you're saying, when my parents were at university, the exact same thing happened with my father. As part of the Islamic Society,
Hmm.
they were all on the verge of joining like the fight, whether it was in Afghanistan or in Bosnia, but that's
Hmm.
I didn't think like it was so rampant like these days, but I'm guessing the Islamic societies, I mean, even a couple of years back, because what I'm talking about is like 25, 30 odd years ago,
Hmm.
societies were a lot more extreme in their behavior, but they've had to tone it down. But crazy. So you nearly fell for that whole.
Yeah, very much so. Pretty much the only thing that stopped me at that point was just the fact that one, I knew that, well, just from reading around about it a bit more, I learned that it was regarded as a terrorist organization, which, to be completely honest, didn't actually bother me at the time. What bothered me was the fact that, well, it's illegal, so I could get arrested. Basically, it wasn't. It
Yeah.
wasn't the idea of being a member of them that bothered me. It was more the fact of what would be the repercussions of that. That's what kind of stopped me.
Wow. So it's actually the consequences that was a deterrent for you as opposed to like, is what I'm
Yeah,
doing actually morally questionable?
yeah,
Oh,
and also,
wow.
and also to a degree, the fact that the way I was raised as a Muslim, I was completely non-denominational. So I was never a Sunni or a Shi'i or anything else. I always only defined myself as Muslim, and I always felt a little bit funny about joining any one specific kind of organization that believes in this particular way of following Islam over and above any others. Because to me, that always came across as equivalent to a sect or a denomination, which I was completely against. So that also
Okay.
factored into why I didn't join it as well. But having
Right.
said that, that kind of non-sectarianism also did get me into a lot of arguments with other Muslims
I
in
was literally, that was on
yeah.
the tip of my tongue. My next, I was like, just putting myself in your position and being like, how are you dealing with the prodding questions of, but what kind? But what would you mean? Like, what do you follow though? So, what was your whole like? I'm guessing that so the Quran you obviously fully believed in. I'm guessing, right? And then
Oh
what
yeah,
did you believe in
absolutely.
terms of the Hadith or the Sunnah of the Prophet, or what denomination would you say you were closest to in your thinking if you had to, or how did you avoid these follow-up questions from Muslims and kind of safeguard your label and your own view?
Um, I kind of just learned to be more argumentative back. Like if they ask, like if they ask me a question like, "Oh, like how can you not follow a madhab?" Like blah 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 blah. I would be
Mhm.
just turn around. I'd say, "Well, did Muhammad follow a madhab? Was he Sunni? Was he Salafi? Was he Shafi'i? Like what? Tell me."
Yeah, yeah. Fair would they shut up at that point, or did they come
Oh
back
hell
with?
no! They always came back with more. They'd always come back with like, oh, like only the scholars can understand it properly. It was just like, well, no, because that's setting them up as kind of a middleman between yourself and Allah. And since Islam is not about following middlemen, like we should be able to follow the Quran and the Hadith directly for ourselves.
Yeah,
And fair enough if we don't understand something, but since, well, as I would have said at the time, since this religion is so kind of clear and straightforward, we shouldn't need to kind of like constantly go to other people to explain it for us if it's already self-explanatory.
yeah,
Obviously,
yeah.
now I see like the fallacy behind that logic in the case of religions, especially Islam. So yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, that's literally so understandable. I had the same thoughts when I was a Muslim as well, because you never with Islam it's so monotheistic in general, and then even the nice version, they kind of say it's a personal thing, so you shouldn't need a middleman. To be honest, obviously you need I mean, oh, I was Sunni Muslim and like following whatever sect my parents or grandparents were affiliated with, but you don't
Mm,
you don't really turn to these imams or anything. You just know the kind of like school of, like in my case it was the Hanafi school of thought that you follow.
mm.
So in terms of like rulings and Sharia prescriptions and things like that, would you just how would you define what it is that you actually identified with in that sense? I know I am being like those Muslims to you, but
I know, I can
I'm
hear it.
also just
I know. I would, to be honest, there is no one denomination I could really pin myself down to and say I was closest to that one. There were a lot of aspects of like mainstream Sunni Islam that I kind of was in general agreement with. But to this day, I couldn't tell you which specific madhab because, to be honest, I didn't look into them very much.
yeah.
But as I got older, especially like kind of towards my kind of late teens to early 20s, I kind of looked into kind of more, not necessarily fringe, but kind of less mainstream kind of understandings of Islam. I was reading a lot of books and leaflets like from people like Harun Yahya. There was this website that I used to go on to that was a very kind of like Quran alone movement. Was it called Quranic teachings.co.uk, if I remember correctly, that kind
Right.
of talked about how to follow Islam like only through the Quran without recourse to the ahadith, or at least not necessarily depending on the hadith like to believe in anything, and just deriving all the things we needed to know about Islam like directly from the Quran. And also just a lot of my own thinking as well, because I've always been a very, on top of being a very creative person, I've always been a very introspective person as well, just kind of trying to think things through logically and scientifically, like as best as I always can.
Yeah.
So yes, so in that sense, I can't
Okay.
really say there was one particular way of following Islam that I kind of adhered to, like so much.
Okay, no, that was a great answer because, like, yeah, it was a very just out there question. So okay, in a way, you're kind of a Quranist because at one point you kind of wanted to move away from the Hadith or kind of have your own understanding, and then, like you said, a lot of your own thought. In a way, I guess you were kind of, I mean, you seem to be like really, really on your deen, on your religion, but in a way that you've kind of like taken the most I guess the Quran is the most important facet of Islam, let's say, but then you've also meshed it with your understanding and your views as so as to not get somebody involved between you and God, right? Like
Mm,
even for example, when I was dabbling in trying to understand Sufism, there was a lot of like discrepancy within how do you go about um like feeling that connection with God or whatever, and is it through a guide? And I always, as a Sunni, like coming from a Sunni background, also
mm,
inherently felt that was wrong because why do I need even a guide, or in Pakistan you say like a peer or a mentor almost, to get me to
mm,
have that, like facilitate that connection almost. So that was one thing that really put me off
mm,
that, because a lot of Sufis proclaimed you actually will not like get to the highest level of heaven or form that connection with God, the union with God that they say, if you
yeah.
don't follow that middleman. So yeah, I guess we all kind
Mm,
of have our own understanding, and we're taking it as we see fit. Just before we carry on, I just want to give a quick um, just highlight this comment from Ultra. Thank you so much for the super chat. And atheism is unstoppable. Jamaica, Jamaica. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Once you start thinking and like just critical thinking spreads around the world, I definitely
mhm.
do think atheism is unstoppable. And you have been supporting a couple of times, so thank you so much again. I don't believe in God. You do. Who's right? I am. I'll take that as a comment. But you're right. You're super, super duper right. And also the onus is on them to prove it. So we don't really have to do anything but sit tight and just keep
Yeah.
putting the spotlight on Islam. And again, another ray of support. Thank you so much. Secular humanism over everything. Yes, again, you're preaching to the choir here. I am like on the same page. But thank you so much for your support, Ultra. Oh, and then another, oh wow, Ultra, thank you so much. Needing God to be a decent human being is kind of sad. Yeah, I completely agree. I actually think it's those people that we should worry about the most, who really think that they need religion in order to be moral. That those are the most worrying people, in my opinion, because you absolutely don't need a God to be a good person and have inherent morality. One Tawny Stranger, do you have a comment on that if you want to?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially now after leaving Islam, just realizing that there are so many different, well, first of all, different types of morality, but even taking that into account, just the fact that there is morality without divinity or recourse to a god or to a mainstream religion just kind of proves the fallacy of like the belief in divinity and of religion in and of itself. It kind of reminds me of little bit of information I came across some years ago, because I'm a bit of a nerd as well.
Love it, love it.
Yeah. I was reading just about just like the general view that ancient Greeks had of Africans in this one really interesting book, which talks about what was it, like life before kind of racism. And in it described the Greeks talking about this particular tribe of Africans that they referred to as the ichthyophagi, which basically just means fish eaters. And the Greeks basically described them as being like so kind of like morally upright and decent and pure, despite the fact that these were literally people who lived in the jungle, like literally like wild men, effectively. And that the fact that they're so upright and so moral, and they don't need written laws like to make them good people, unlike their own selves as Greek people who are literate and lived in cities and stuff like that. They needed written laws in order to be decent. And that was very interesting. I found that comment. I was just like, so morality is something innate in humanity. And even through research that we find now, like in the scientific community, we're finding that a sense of fairness or equality seems to be inherent in all mammals at the very least, if not to animals in general. So yeah, totally agree with that comment.
No, touche. And honestly, I'd never ever heard that before. So that was extremely interesting to hear a Greek perspective. And even that, because they was, one of the first, I'd say, in like in terms of on a global scale, actual like rule of law and democracy, to kind of set that up and give the world that as a process. But for them to see people completely different to them and be like, they don't even need the levels of law and order that we've established, because like you said, it is entirely inherent. But I think a lot of people who need to slip faith into everything and hold on to faith in order to believe in a God as well, I don't think at some level they're willing to accept that morality is built in inherently, like you said, or even exists across all species as a matter of fact, like within us. But yeah, really, really interesting stuff. I don't want to get too sidetracked here, because we're not even halfway through your story yet. But Ultra has a comment for you. Thank you so much again for your support. He says, or she says, Ultra says, I've no idea. Nerds rule. So that's definitely for you, One Tawny Stranger.
Thank you, Ultra.
And Edgar Payne has become a new member. Thank you so much. Welcome to the channel, and I hope you enjoy what's going on over here. Okay, I do have there's other comments as well, which I think are really interesting. People have things that they want to ask you, but let's just take a quick pause on that and go back to your story. So so again, we're just basically talking about how religious you were in general, your kind of run in with the Islamic Society, and your potential almost recruiting to be a terrorist, and then you decided, no, the consequences are too severe, it would probably destroy your entire life if it went tits up, which it would eventually.
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, do you want to carry on from there? Because I'm just coming on to more about how religious you were, and then the doubts that you had, and where did it all start to unravel, my friend?
Oh yeah. So basically, a little bit more about my background. Due to the fact that I was basically the only Caribbean Muslim I knew, I was very isolated. I'll be honest. Like throughout much of my life, I couldn't relate to pretty much anyone else around me. Like for pretty much all of my childhood, mostly because a lot of people kind of like misunderstood me. Like being a Muslim, most people. Well, I found that growing up, that a lot of people, especially those who identified as very strongly Christian, were actively scared of Muslims, so they would actively avoid me for that reason. But even those who didn't know me, especially in school, would actively be scared of me whenever they saw me, as you can probably guess, because I'm black, like regardless of whatever my religion is.
Yeah.
And when they got to speak to me, they would say, "Oh, I didn't realize like that. You were like that. Oh, you're so well spoken." It's just like, "Oh, like you talk so
What the
well. But you're so
hell?
intelligent." It's just like, yeah, well, what do you expect?
Yeah. God, that is awful.
So yeah, so I had a lot of that growing up, and
Yeah.
not just from the non-Muslim community, but also very much within the Muslim community as well. Because fair enough, like there aren't many Caribbean Muslims around. That is absolutely fair.
Mm-hmm.
But in the part of East London that I grew up in, which was very Pakistani dominated, when they found out I was Jamaican, they tended to kind of well, I've had various reactions. Some of them would not believe that I was Muslim, first of all,
Right.
um, and some of them would either actively ignore me, or just or a few of them, very few of them, would be curious and like want to find out more about me. But on the whole, they were just very kind of insular, and they didn't really. Basically, they just didn't want to know me as such, even though they could see I was a fellow Muslim, like coming to the masjid with them and everything like that.
I apologize on behalf of people from my background profusely. They, I know exactly what you've like. I've lived within that community just on the other
Mhm.
side, west,
Yeah.
and I had enough issues being one of them. So,
Mm.
and I can completely see the situation that you're describing and the scene that you're describing. So
Mm.
that would have been really, really rough to kind of live through. And also, that whether or not even at face value they're accepting you, are they deep down like, well, is he really Muslim? Like, what's the deal here? Whether it's at you attending the same mosque or so. I wanted to ask you, did you, when you said you became proficient in what you said, you memorized the 32 surahs by the
Hmm.
time you were a teenager or something, was this self-study? Were you going to Quran classes? Where were you kind
That
of
was
learning?
completely
And
self-study. Yeah, completely
okay.
self-study. Yeah, literally, it was just from like listening to the Quran being played on YouTube videos and just like learning the correct pronunciation for myself. Because I used to go to Quranic classes when I was much younger, like pre-teens. I'm talking about, but they never actually taught memorization of the Quran as such. They would like just tell you like verses of the Quran, and then go on long spiels about the ahadith and like how this related to the life of Muhammad and this companion and that companion. So I didn't
Yeah.
actually learn anything from it as such. And also, to be honest, I'm probably going to sound a little bit stereotypical here, but they couldn't
Mhm.
pronounce the Quran correctly either. So I didn't learn how to
Yeah.
pronounce Arabic properly from them. It was only from
Yeah.
like, listening to YouTube videos that I actually learned like the difference between qaf and kaf and the rain
Yeah.
and the normal letter g and stuff, and just like okay.
Yeah, because you have the proper like Arabic like pronunciation with like fusha and like the actual, and that's not how most British, like even Pakistanis in their mosques recite. They don't recite that
Mm,
well.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I literally could tell as soon as you said certain words. Um,
Uh,
uh,
so yeah,
yeah.
should we go on to about like how I became an ex-Muslim?
Yes, literally, you took the words right out of my mouth. So doubts what's happening because right now you are a good Muslim. Maybe
So,
not fully accepted, but you're a good Muslim.
so yeah, well, to be honest, I never really had doubts about Islam as such.
Mm,
Basically, it all started when I was 21 and I had made the decision to follow my creativity like to its utmost. Because, like I said, I'd always been a creative person ever since I was little, but I'd never pursued it or followed it because typical creative people, as many of the audience, if they're creative, can relate to, their parents or their family, as was the case with mine, don't tend to be supportive of that. And so I stifled my creativity and didn't do anything with it until I was 21. And that was when I made the decision to follow it like absolutely to its utmost. And from there, once I made that decision, I started joining creative writing groups. I started getting my stories published, and then I went into poetry and spoken word. And then after that, I even wrote my own play and performed in it 4 times. Um,
wow.
and that was just over the course of the next 3 years after that, making that decision. And then
Wow.
after, yeah. So by that point, I was 24. And when I looked back on my life at that point, as I'm very prone to do, because I'm very introspective,
Mhm.
um, I realized that like, in those past 3 years, like, all of this success I've made with my creativity, I didn't actually have to be a Muslim to do any of that. Other people, like non-Muslims, have been doing stuff like this exactly as I have. So what made Islam so special in that respect? I had to question myself on that. And that's when I realized, well, hold on a minute. Like, considering how strict I was at being a Muslim, like it didn't help me with any of that at all. And this is the one thing that I've always wanted to do since I was a child. I've always known that I wanted to be a writer, and Islam didn't hinder me directly, but it didn't help either. It didn't give me an
Yeah.
advantage in that.
Yeah.
So what? So I had to question myself: what did Islam do for me? And so I sat down and wrote out a list of all the things that Islam had done for me throughout my entire life, and I realized that, well, the things that it didn't do for me or that it held me back from doing, so what you could call the bad side, it was looking a lot longer than the good side.
Yes. Okay.
And that's when I was just like, well, hold on a minute. Since this is meant to be the perfect religion that has answers like for all of life's problems and it's supposed to help you throughout every single step of your life, especially considering just how micromanaging Islam is,
Yeah.
it should have actually helped me throughout my life. There shouldn't be any bad points at all. But the fact that there are so many just proves that this is not true. Like, this is basically complete. Well, am I allowed to swear here?
Go for it.
This is complete dog shit.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't put up with this anymore. And I literally made the decision on the spot. Like, nope, I'm not a Muslim anymore. I don't believe in this. This is a lie. And once I made that decision, and then I started looking into the history of Islam and religion in general. And that's when I realized, like, yeah, leaving Islam was the right thing to do.
What? Oh, so just because I don't want to get this wrong at all. So when you were making this list, almost, it was a practical, it was a physical list, I'm guessing, right? It wasn't just a
Yeah.
mental list. Like,
Yeah, it
wow,
was a
okay.
written list. Yeah.
So was that list more to do with this is what Islam brings to my life, this is what Islam hinders in my life kind of
Yeah.
list?
Yep.
And that list was actually the first thing to kind of put you off or make you introspect more to be like, I'm done with this.
Yep.
So it wasn't actually anything Islamic per se itself that's like turned you off at this point.
No, not really. But actually, no. To be completely fair, as part of that list, that also did have to bring up aspects of Islam in and of itself, like the theology, like the belief in angels and the devil and jinn and stuff like that. And I was just like, what? Where did that really fit into everyday reality? And then I
Yeah.
realized it didn't. Like this, even as a child, I used to look for like scientific explanations of the malaika and the jinn,
Mm.
and even though there were some that were kind of halfway plausible. At the same time, there were no definitions that were really agreed upon. So it's just like, so what was the point of really kind of believing in this? Like, if nobody can even agree on what the hell they are.
Yeah, for sure. Also,
Mm.
I hope your list had like praying 5 times a day,
It actually
like
did. Yeah.
spending all those years learning how to recite 32 surahs. Do you know how many poems I could have written?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Um, yeah,
Like,
so
literally.
yeah. And I guess like obviously this creative urge kind of takes over because that's also like really genuinely part of who you are, and it's inherent. Like I
Mm.
think humans in general like are born to be creative and expressive, and I mean it's beautiful to me. It's like such poetic irony that you realized and understood that Islam does not give you the framework to operate at your optimal potential
Mm.
and like
Exactly.
thrive and express yourself creatively. So even if that was like the push or the force for you to just confront what it is that was like, you know, suffocating your life in a way, I think that's pretty epic. So would you say all in all that's what eventually made you leave? Then you said it was the list, and then you actually looked into the history and some of the source material, I'm guessing, and you just thought, oh hells yes, I definitely made the right choice.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
And
Um,
was it anything that stuck out or struck out to you particularly when you were reading about it, then that you just thought, whoa, what the hell was that?
um,
Or
Nothing in particular as such.
yeah.
Although I would say that as I looked more into the history of Islam, I was just realizing just how much of a farce it was. Like the more I was reading, I just kept finding out just more and more lies, um, like self contradictions, and just outright like the violence and the enforced
Mm,
ignorance that been perpetuated to maintain it all, like throughout all of these centuries. And to be honest, the very first emotion, and by far like the most powerful emotion that was kind of instilled in me from like learning all of this, was just a sense of being ripped off. That my mum had
yeah.
converted to a con religion. It's like she'd swapped one form of mental slavery, which was Christianity, for another one. It was just like,
Mhm.
well, why the fuck should I be following this anymore? This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I actually
Yeah.
confronted her with this list, not straight away, but about a year later, actually. And that's when the shit really hit the fan, because she was still very much a practicing and devout Muslim.
Yeah.
And when I showed her this list and told her that I don't believe in it anymore, she instantly stopped talking to me. Literally, that very second, refused to speak to me except to just shout at me or just to tell me that I'm not welcome in this house anymore. Um,
Wow.
and she did many, many things that made it very, very clear that she had no intention of like reconciling or even trying to understand me or anything like that. She dismantled my bed, so I literally didn't have a bed to sleep on in my own house anymore. So I literally had to sleep on the living room floor.
Yeah.
And to and actually, to be honest, I've never told anyone this. I'm not even completely sure I'm going to tell anyone now. But during all of that time, I was actually basically wetting myself in my sleep every single night.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I'm
literally every
literally
night.
so like sorry that you've because it's such a drastic reaction as well. It's almost like a knee-jerk reaction, right? But it's pretty
Yep.
intense.
Oh yeah.
And it's having like lasting implications on you. Like that's definitely messed like that would mess with you totally. Like it's like a switch
Yeah.
has gone off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Gosh.
she stopped me from speaking to my own brother, who was still also living in the house with me as well. As
Younger
if,
brother, I'm guessing. Is
yeah,
it he's the
younger
young?
brother, yeah,
Okay. Oh,
yeah,
that's
as if I,
horrific. Okay.
yeah, as if like I was some kind of threat to him. Like whenever like I would approach him, she would literally like put herself between me and him, and literally try to push me away from him, like things like that.
Yeah.
She forbade me from eating anything in the house that I hadn't paid for myself. So
Yeah.
she was literally trying to starve me to death.
Oh
And then,
my goodness. Whew.
and
Okay.
then after that, she basically, well, she and also my stepdad, because she had remarried at this point,
Mm.
basically both of them told me like you are not going to tell anybody in the community about this, are you? Like you're going to keep quiet about this, aren't you? And I was just like, well, I'll keep quiet if nobody asks about it, but if they do ask, I will not hide it. You're not going to shut me up.
Wow. Okay. Bold, 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 bold of you.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Gosh.
And that
I'm
went
guessing your
on.
stepdad was quite a strict Muslim as well. Yeah.
Yeah, funny enough, he was
Okay.
also a person of Caribbean background who had also converted to Islam as well. Very ironic.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Okay. Really interesting. Stop Scamming Man is a very avid follower and supporter, and he says so sorry for this. And also, follow-up comment, your own mother treating you like that would break most people, and I completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just our hearts go out to you. That's a lot to go through. So
Yeah.
okay, so yeah, I mean, is there? Honestly, say as much as you feel comfortable saying. Say as little as you want. It's up to you. But yeah, that was my question at this point was just like, what eventually made you leave, and the aftermath with the family. So if there's anything else you kind of want to touch on, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, we can also move on with the interview.
No, I'm happy to carry on with this because I'm done like keeping quiet about it. I've been keeping quiet about it for so long.
Hmm.
That wasn't even the worst of it. Like the real worst part of it was that actually bearing in mind another bit of background about my mother.
Hmm.
When she was 18 years old, so back when she was Christian, her mother, so my grandmother, had made her homeless simply for being an adult.
Oh,
Yep.
how do you mean?
As in, when my mum turned 18, my
Hmm.
grandmum literally turned around and said to her, "You're a grown woman. You can fend for yourself. Get out of my
Get
house. You don't live here
out.
anymore." Yep. And my mum was sleeping
Oh,
on a park bench for 3 weeks. So,
oh my
and
God.
knowing that about my mother's background, and obviously she had told me this herself, she then decided to make me homeless. She kicked me out of the house by literally turning around and saying to me, "I cannot have a kafir living in the house. Get out."
Oh, snap. Yeah, because you're a kafir as well now. You're just not just an adult, you're an adult kafir.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. So again, only feel comfortable talking about it. Well, what did you do at that ripe young age, just being told this, given this ultimatum to get out? Or did they ask you to come back to Islam, by the way? If
Nope, not at
um
all. I've made it very
okay.
clear that I had no intention of coming back to Islam at all. Oh, actually, I should also point out as well, at this point, my mother had also gotten a carer for my brother, which just goes to show the fact that like she doesn't trust me, like his own brother, to look after him, yet she'll trust a complete stranger to do it. And
Yeah,
obviously he was
yeah.
Muslim as well.
And she'd
And,
rather a stranger do it than his own flesh and blood, just because
yep,
of what you believe.
yep. And even
Goodness.
that carer would sometimes get into arguments with me as well. And it's just like, really? In front of
Don't
my
tell me
brother, what's wrong with you?
was the carer Muslim too?
Yeah, very much so.
You're surrounded, mate.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And he was
Um,
trying to get me to come back to Islam. And I was just making arguments to him about how, well, just showing him all the contradictions within Islam. But he kept quiet, but he didn't, he didn't like try to support me or anything like that in any way. So it's just like, what can I do with you?
yeah. Oh my gosh. I just want to quickly, sorry, One Tawny Stranger, I just want to say the Afro Humanist is saying thank you for speaking about your experience. And I just want to second that because it's not easy. I know it's definitely not easy. I still get like a bit of like, trepidation when I have to go on someone's channel and tell my whole story again. So honestly, thank you so much. Your voice is so unique and so necessary, and people are genuinely appreciating it and have really interesting things to ask you as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for your support.
And
So, yeah.
sorry,
Also,
sorry,
go.
one more thing before we continue. Stop Scamming Man is just such a regular supporter. Thank you so much for your support, Stop Scamming Man. The comment is, of course, there was a time when she considered Buddhism. It's clear from this and many other examples that many converts enter Islam because they are open-minded, then proceed to become anything but. I think this is referring to, obviously, when your mother considered Buddhism, right? And you said she didn't find it spiritual enough.
Exactly.
Do you have anything to say on the fact that these like converts, for example, in that frame of mind enter Islam because they're open-minded to begin with, and then it just goes downhill?
To be completely honest, I think it probably depends a little bit, because I'm starting to suspect that in order to choose one religion over another, you have to be of a particular type of mindset. And certain types of religions like do appeal to people of certain like emotional stances or personality traits more than others. So I think there must have been something within my mom's psyche that kind of really kind of made Islam appealing to her over and above something like Buddhism. Whereas if I was searching for a religion again, I would have much preferred Buddhism over Islam like any day of the week.
Same. So would I. If I could like have a pick and mix or whatever, I would definitely take Buddhism over Islam. But I'm just trying to like kind of really, I mean, this is just like a shot in the dark, but I'm kind of just trying to get into your mom's headspace and be like, why would I ever consider that Buddhism maybe isn't spiritual enough? And the only thing I can think of is that some people, when they equate like religion and spirituality, some people require a lot more structure and control kind of built into it without knowing it, but they consider it guidance. So where in Buddhism, like I don't even know, to be honest, much about Buddhism besides like, just the different paths and the seven noble truths, really, and like the importance of meditation and the practice of becoming a monk, or aiming for enlightenment or nirvana. But I really don't understand like the actual, I don't know enough about it. But I would say that because it doesn't, like, especially if you're not like a monk or whatever, if you're just like practicing Buddhism the way you would practice a religion casually, it doesn't have the control, and it doesn't, you like 5 times a day in Islam you need to kind of be praying at the bare minimum. And other than that, like, there's so much more embedded in it that if you are a human being looking for structure and like almost leadership and guidance, if you will, Islam is great because it's so intrusive, right? Like you were saying, and as well, like it's in every aspect of your life. That
Exactly.
so I don't know, maybe, but yeah, you definitely know your mom better than me. But yeah, I definitely agree with the fact that people do shop around religions because they are open-minded, and then boom, they become anything but that, because that is the effects, and like that's the knock-on effect of what dogma does to a mind, however open-minded or rational it is. Once dogma takes over, it's a different ball game.
Exactly.
But yeah, thank you again. Stop scamming, man. And just I saw something else as well that was for you. Again, just the Afro-humanist was saying it can't be easy speaking about what you went through, but you were highly commended. So yeah, that's for you as well. So yeah, I mean, sorry, you can carry on with more about that if you want, and let me know when we want to move on to the other section. So go ahead and talk as much as you want about, I mean, the unfolding, unraveling of you leaving Islam. You're kind of almost you're told to get out the house now. You're still a teenager, I'm guessing. How old are you at this point? 20s?
No, I was 25 at this point.
Mid-20s, okay.
Yeah. And at this point, I had a girlfriend, my very first girlfriend ever, and she was actually really, really supportive of me at the time. In fact, it's literally, to be honest, I would say it's because of her that I'm still alive to this very day.
Wow.
Because if it hadn't been for her support, I probably literally, in fact, no, I definitely would have topped myself.
Oh my days.
Yeah, most definitely. In fact, I did even try to top myself like many times, like throughout our relationship, but she didn't know about that at all. I made sure to never let her know.
Oh my goodness. And you just didn't at the last minute, or because if you didn't tell her, I'm guessing she wasn't able to step in, right?
No, just realized that I think at some point it finally kicked in that she did actually love me, and that if I were to go ahead with it, I would end up hurting her and causing her pain over something that she wouldn't understand and probably wouldn't be able to get over, and I couldn't do that to her.
Yeah, well, every single person listening is so glad, including everybody that you're talking about right now. But yeah, so again, this is all a result of you just saying, I don't believe in this ideology anymore. And I
Exactly.
mean, it's not like you're even going around like proselytizing or getting actively educating people about what you realized or what it is you believe in now, right? You're just kind of trying to live your own life, just
Exactly.
under the same roof as your mother or your family at the time or whatever.
Yeah.
And this is actually the backlash. And so this is just all like is just this the emotional kind of torment that you're going through now because of the consequences that you're having to deal with from leaving and the like ostracization and isolation from your mom and your brother or
Yeah. To be honest, I would say, well, since it's been so long since that incident, I'm not going through it so much anymore. Although there are days when the memories of it do actually come back to the fore a lot stronger.
yeah.
But at the time, it was so raw and so brand new that I didn't really know how to process it. And coming from the kind of background that I did, which sorry,
That's all right.
um, coming from the kind of background that I did, because my mother is not very emotionally expressive, so I never really learned how to kind of express my emotions at all, or even to really understand my own emotions, even as they're going on inside me.
Mhm.
Even throughout the time I was with my girlfriend, I was feeling all of this pain, all of this hurt, all of this sadness, and I literally didn't know what the hell it was. I didn't know how to process it. I didn't understand it. I didn't, Sometimes I literally didn't even know it was there, even as I was feeling it. So there would be times when, say, for example, we'd be going out on a date, like just going for a walk or whatever, and then suddenly I just would not be able to focus on wherever we were or whatever we were doing, and it would take me like hours or even days, like to be able to kind of talk to her at all. In fact, actually, as I kind of got older, I actually learned how to relate to people, or even in, oh, sorry, sticking to topic, within my relationship with my girlfriend,
Yeah.
I kind of realized that as I was kind of getting more used to the relationship, I was learning how to manage it better, relatively speaking. Considering I was coming from a place where emotions were effectively brand new to me,
Mhm.
to a place where like, all of a sudden, like I'm having to talk about it, like just to keep the relationship going. Because my ex girlfriend, she was a very emotionally expressive person. Um, yeah, I did get better with it over time. Um, I'm still not completely there yet, but I have been progressing ever since.
Mhm. Did you ever consider like going to therapy or talking to somebody?
Mm, to be completely honest, I have considered it, but I've always decided against it,
Mhm.
largely because I've never really kind of considered it very, what's the term? Honestly, I've never really trusted it,
Mm.
especially considering that, well, I know the statistics of well, black men, especially in this country, and their experiences with dealing with mental health services.
That was literally what came to my mind after I asked you that.
Yeah,
I was like, yeah, that definitely would be a factor. I mean, that in the UK, that's definitely
yeah,
something you should think about. Yeah, for sure.
yeah. Even so, yeah. So there was that going on. So the fact that I didn't trust that there would be anybody out there able to help me,
Mhm.
and also the fact that just being an ex-Muslim as well, I didn't really trust that there would be anybody who could relate to that side of my experience as well, because most people have never heard of ex-Muslims and therefore wouldn't know how to relate to us. Um,
Mhm.
Actually, having said that, I did actually once try to reach out to a therapist. It was a Nigerian couple, a husband and wife couple, and their daughter. And I had a free session with them, just so I could kind of get a feel for what they were about. And they were basically asking me like really, really strange questions, because they were all like really, really staunch Christians themselves, and basically they were trying to effectively proselytize like through their psychotherapy, effectively, which was absolutely
Oh,
ridiculous.
bloody hell. Okay, you're
But
going
they were
there to
asking,
kind of like try and offload, and here you are trying to be like, like dodge this Christian proselytizing.
exactly. So I'm telling them about suicide, and they're asking me if I have I ever dabbled in like voodoo and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
was just like, what the fuck? It's like, I'm telling you that I tried to kill myself, and you're asking me whether I've been like dealing with rag dolls and shit like that. It's like,
For
what is wrong with you?
real.
And
Yeah.
I literally got into an argument with them, like literally a back and forth email argument, and I basically effectively told them to fuck off.
Mm,
They were just so
yeah.
useless to me.
Yeah, no, that completely makes sense. And obviously, like you said, I mean, even when I went to therapy, like my situation was different because it was actually like a form of therapy for PTSD, which
Mm,
they just recommended. But I was so literally like shit scared to go because half of me like opening up would be the ex-Muslim stuff, and I was just hoping that there wasn't like in my case like a brown person or a
mm,
like a
yeah,
judgmental Muslim that I would
yeah,
have to
yeah,
talk to. Otherwise, I would have opted out straight away because,
yeah.
I'm not here to kind of filter and watch my words. You're just expecting, just it should be a specific way where nobody should be asking you about voodoo. Nobody should be judging you, like whether it's not even overtly, whether it's internally. It
Mm,
needs to be a safe space. So I totally understand where you're coming from. Um,
mm,
but I realized, okay, we've been chatting for an hour almost. So I want to kind of get to some of the really juicy stuff because
okay.
for those of you who don't know as well, I've actually met One Tawny Stranger and we had a brief chat, and I've actually heard some of his poetry, which I have to say is absolutely phenomenal. And hopefully we'll have you guys hear some of it as well soon. That's in the works. Hopefully, because I mean it is just it's brilliant. And I feel like we could make a whole video on that, like when in terms of especially the number of poets that the prophet killed. This is just kind of keeping blasphemous poetry alive, even in 2021, and I think that's a beautiful thing in the name of free speech. So yeah, I mean, I would love to get your words out there. So hopefully we can do something with that. But what I wanted to talk to you about is when I met you that day,
Hmm.
you obviously like had such a unique voice and experience, and I said, oh my god, I've never met an ex-Muslim from a Caribbean background. And you said, yeah, there's so few of us. And what really struck me and stuck with me was the fact that you said we are a minority within a minority within a minority.
Yep.
And I'm just a minority within a minority in this case. So your extra minority
Yeah.
really, really hit home. And I was like, oh, damn, like that's true. That is freaking true in this case. So if can you just please explain to us or give us just, I mean, just your thoughts in general, because you have such an interesting experience. I don't really want to come at it from a specific angle, but genuinely your thoughts on, I guess, racism, being an ex-Muslim from a Caribbean background, why that makes you a minority within a minority within a minority, and your thoughts on the matter.
Well, yeah. Well, going from the Caribbean side of things, well, the vast majority of well, actually, let's break it down a little bit. Most people don't realize, but there are actually Asian Caribbeans as well. There have
Mm,
been for about 200 years or so. The Asian Caribbeans are relatively more likely to be Muslim than the Afro Caribbeans. Afro Caribbeans are very, very heavily, predominantly Christian, like mainstream Christian denominations like Anglican, like general Protestant, and a few Catholic sects as well. And because of the particular types of Christianity that they've been raised with, a lot of them see Muslims as enemies. So even as I was in one of the poetry groups that I used to attend, there was this one guy who to be honest, I didn't really see him as like a very, very strong Christian as such in terms of practice, but he like very staunchly saw himself as like a very believing Christian, and was a fellow Jamaican as well. He knew that I was an ex-Muslim, so he knew that I wasn't a Muslim anymore, but I could see from the way he talked to me and spoke to me that he very much saw me as an enemy. He very much saw me as almost like once a Muslim, always a Muslim. And whenever we did any practice role plays and stuff like that, like he would get very happy whenever I played like a character who was about to die or anything like that. It's like, what does this say about you? No, do you actually want me to die as well? So there was that to deal with, which I was always aware of growing up. But then there's also the fact that even those Afro-Caribbeans who are Muslim, the vast majority of them are converts to Islam. And so many of them, well, even though they may be kind of like very devout and everything like that, but almost none of them have any experience of growing up as a Muslim. But I do. It's literally all I've known. So I literally have no relationship to like the church or anything like that, because it was literally not part of my upbringing in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. Even though, despite the fact that all of my other relatives, uncles and aunties, were all Christians as well. Like, well, so they say. So there was that to deal with as well. So even within my own family, I was a minority.
Right.
Even with my own aunties, for example, always telling me, "Oh, you need a girlfriend. Like, you can't be going around like being single. You can't wait until marriage. Blah blah blah." And I'm just like, "No, I am waiting until marriage." Even just little things like that, I couldn't even relate to my own family members in that respect.
Yeah.
But then there's also the fact that now being an ex-Muslim, that also makes me a minority as well, because obviously, as you know, ex-Muslims are a minority anyway.
Yeah.
And that's where the being a minority within a minority within a minority, that's where that comes from. In terms of experience like with race and racism and stuff like that, to be completely honest, I got more overt displays of like racism and like racial kind of antagonism much more from the Muslim community more than the non-Muslim community.
Wow, what does that tell you? God.
Yeah. Like I said, growing up, I was surrounded mostly by Pakistanis, a few kind of Bengalis as well, but predominantly Pakistanis. And there were very many instances like throughout my life where it kind of made me realize that it didn't really matter that I was a fellow Muslim, just the fact that they saw like, well, the melanin in my skin, and they like have like a certain perception of me. Like for example, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, me and my family went to an Islamic conference, which was 2 days long, outside of London. And remember, I was a child at this time. There was this man, probably about like mid-30s at the time, came up to me, like we started talking, everything like that. He was an Asian guy, sorry. He was like talking to me and everything, and then all of a sudden he just asked me, "Is that your real voice?"
What?
Like just totally out of the blue. And being so young, I had no clue what that was supposed to mean. So I said, "Yeah, what else? Like, you've just been sitting here, like hearing me talk like for the past like however long. Like, what other voice do you expect me to have?" And then he just got up and walked away.
Oh my days. Wow.
I've had other instances where one time in my teens, I was on my way to the masjid, and I saw 2 black guys suddenly like run up to this Asian guy, like in one of the back streets, and start beating him up. I decided to try and help out, because the way I saw it, I was just like seeing like a fellow like Muslim brother getting attacked by non-Muslims.
Yeah.
And all the other kind of Muslims who are kind of like coming out of their houses trying to help the Asian guy, they started trying to hit the 2 black guys with broomsticks, but then they aimed their broomsticks at me as well, because they assumed I was there with those 2 guys.
Bloody hell. Oh
I had to turn around and say to them, "No, I was on my way to Ummah."
Yeah, take that. I was on my way to Ummah, mate, before, you decided to just act on your prejudice. What the?
Exactly. Yeah.
God, I am literally just fuming. I was not ready for this.
Yeah. Oh, and another
I'm
incident
fuming
as
inside.
well. I
Yeah.
can list them off like all day long, actually.
Go on. Okay, tell us
This was
another.
when I was with my stepdad. Again, still when I was a Muslim.
Hmm.
I'd say like late teens, early 20s. We were going into one of the like really large masajid in East London, and this was during Eid al no we were going for basically the end of Eid. Sorry, no, the end Eid al Salatul Eid. That's it. Yeah, we were going for Salatul Eid, and as we were entering the masjid, like um, the doors were absolutely packed. There were like literally hundreds and hundreds of guys, like literally just crowding inside, like through front door, back door, whatever. Me and my stepdad, both black, we were coming in through the front door. And then one of the guys standing at the door turned around and says, "Oh no, you can't come in through the front. You have to go in through the back."
What?
Literally stopped us
What?
there and then trying to force us to go through the back, but we just pushed past him anyway.
Yeah.
It was just
Oh
like,
my God. Sorry, I have to be this person. Was this East London Mosque? Yeah.
no, it wasn't. It was another one. If I
Oh,
name it, it'll be a bit too obvious. Like, where it starts
don't name it. Don't name it.
confusing.
I just had to have a little guess because you said it was one of the biggest ones in East London, and I mean,
Yeah.
I got some serious stick when I walked around near East London Mosque. Like I was just in a little like a knee-length dress. We were actually about to film for a BBC documentary about why young people are leaving religion, but
Mm,
even a simple camera set up there, like it just sent like people were coming towards us. They were like shouting at the BBC camera guy. They were shouting at me for
mm,
not being fully covered and having the minaret of the mosque be in the
yeah.
same shoot as a girl in a dress. Like they were literally losing their marbles over it. But yeah, that's why I just don't tell us the mosque name. But oh my goodness, this is honestly despicable
Hmm.
behavior from
Yeah.
within the Muslim Ummah, which claim to be like all encompassing and equal and like a brotherhood, if you will. Like
Yeah.
this is actually what happens in reality. That this is like the prejudices, the racism, it's all there. Being a
Absolutely.
Muslim doesn't mean you're safe from racism from these people. It's just not the case.
Exactly.
Um,
Especially even just reading into Islamic history, just learning just how prevalent this has been. Like even despite the fact that Muhammad may have tried to end it with like his famous farewell sermon, it didn't stop the anti-black racism within the Muslim community, not by a long shot. And they still enslaved and abused Africans as well as Europeans and other people they came across as they were like developing their empire. But it's
mhm.
just like they held like a special kind of hatred of like black people or people of African background, and it's just like since this
They
has been
did.
so endemic like throughout Islamic history, like what right do Muslims have to say that Islam is truly against racism, considering the Muslims themselves are practicing it? It's like no, they don't have a right to say it.
Exactly. Honestly, that was one of like the biggest like just one of the biggest kind of like bombshells that were dropped on me once I started looking into Islam as well, when I realized, oh my God, is this all just like man-made, made up crap? Like what is the history of this?
Mm,
Seeing the slave trade and the way that they treated black people, where all my entire life, school, everything had just taught me like, oh, the West and the Atlantic slave trade and blah 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 blah, like
mm,
nothing to do with the Muslims. The spotlight was never turned on them. Even the Crusades, I naively thought like, yeah, the Muslims, had their right. They were also trying to defend themselves at some point. That's not the case at all. Like, it was the Christians that actually were defending themselves, but it was this slave trade that preceded the Atlantic slave trade that really, really got under my skin. And I was like,
exactly.
why are we not taught this? How do people? Because then it would just really make me I'd get so cross if I see a black person like wholeheartedly embracing Islam, but I know that the values or the reason that they're attached to Islam is because they genuinely think that Muhammad was a good guy and he freed slaves, and it's the complete opposite of the West. But I was
Mm,
like, if you actually knew what he did to your people and the way he's described your people when he dealt with like the Abyssinian kings in the time of the time, and
yeah,
when he came across black, like the comments he would actually pass towards them has set the foundations for racism. um
exactly.
even the story of Bilal, like I was fed such a whitewashed version of that story that I
Hmm.
read into it myself, and I was like, no, we've just been lied to on the biggest scale. But yeah, that really, really got under my skin. You know, that's why I made that whole video about like even Muhammad Ali, what his intentions were so pure. He was like trying to fight for his people. He wanted equality. But had he known that the ideology he, latched onto in order to think he was doing that is just one that enslaved his people way earlier than the one he was angry at.
Exactly. Yeah.
um, but yeah, sorry, just gonna go through a couple of super chats quickly. The Afro Humanist says you both are amazing. So thank you so much, the Afro Humanist. I'm so glad you're enjoying this conversation. Um, Stop Scamming Man is just being insanely generous. Thank you so much for all your support. Um, Stop Scamming Man is saying, I don't presume to know if it would help, but there's a really good psychologist on YouTube, Theremin Trees, an ex-Christian from an intolerant background, including a very abusive mother. He knows his stuff on religious trauma. I've actually heard of Theremin Trees. I actually think I must have watched that channel at some point when I was going into like my coming out of Islam rabbit hole where I just spent ages on YouTube. But yeah, I think that comment is for you, One Tawny Stranger. So if you do have time, definitely check out Theremin Trees.
Oh, I've been doing so. I've heard of him.
Oh,
Yeah,
sick.
I absolutely love his channel. It is so on point. It's just like, yeah, it's absolutely one of my favorite channels.
Oh, amazing. Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, Stop Scamming Man. And it seems like, yeah, you already know of it. So that's amazing. And then Stop Scamming Man, thank you again. Um, yeah, I'm just a bit taken aback with all your support. Please, like, this is a lot. So just yeah, thank you. I'd stress he's a psychologist, though. I think this is in reference to theremin trees. I'd
Mhm.
stress he's a psychologist. They are more qualified than counselors. Yeah, I agree with that. Counseling tends to be 10 years behind psychology.
Yeah,
Um,
I
yeah.
very much find that as well. I've spoken to several counselors, and yeah, I find that they're not very proactive. They're just they're just not the type of people that I really need to be speaking to. I don't really need to be speaking about my problems as such, especially to a stranger. I'd rather do something about it and have some kind of plan of action rather than just talk. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I wholeheartedly get where you're coming from. Like, when I was telling you, because they offered me the treatment for PTSD, like they offered
Mm,
me a treatment. The other option was like counseling, where you just talk to someone. And I was just not looking forward to that. But
mm,
because this treatment was so like, it was so aimed at literally, it's called EMDR, which is eye movement resensitization and deprocessing. I think, yeah,
mhm.
EMDR. It's kind of a new method, but you're basically following this light. I think I'm going to make a video about it properly and like talk about like what it did for me. But you do feel like a dog in the beginning because you're just like your eyes are following this light. They're taking you back to a specific memory, and then your eyes follow this light. But effectively, what it does is like it mimics the way your brain processes things during REM sleep, which is like when you're in the deepest form of sleep. And it's
Okay.
essentially wiping away memories. So, like you're saying, like I don't just want to sit on a sofa and chat to someone about like the issues or the problems I think I have or need to work through. This was an actual like the reason I feel so like this whole thing is way behind me is because I think they like effectively actually did wipe out those memories as opposed to me just sitting there and relaying the entire thing like conversation after conversation, week
Mm,
after week.
mm.
So that was really, really good. And I mean, obviously in the UK, there's so many ways to access that. But yeah, if things are ever looking in the direction, I definitely recommend people to look into EMDR therapy. It's really good stuff. But thank you so much, Stop Scamming Man. You're insanely generous today. And then D Pakistanified has become a new YouTube member. Awesome. Thank you so much. And welcome to Holy Humanists. Um, oh, he said Salam Alaikum. I'm not sure if you're a Muslim or not, but welcome either way. And Aziz Morani sent a super sticker. Thank you so much. And I hope you're enjoying this conversation. And thank you so much for your support, everyone. It really, really means a lot to me. Okay, so One Tawny Stranger, I have one more question for you, and then we will open up the floor to some questions because I have a lot of scrolling to do, and um, there's so many comments for you. I'm like, I just realized sugar because now I might have missed some that have gone up, but there's so many interesting things we want to get through. If you have some time, do you have like a 20 minutes or so to answer questions?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, awesome. So my final question to you before we open it up to the audience to ask questions. So people, please do feel free to start getting your questions ready or comments. I will address some interesting comments that were left from earlier that I think One Tawny Stranger could give us some insight into anyway. But my final question to you is, okay, it's kind of too layered. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Basically, I was now Muslim, and second of all, what would your message be to anybody struggling with something similar to what you overcame? And feel free to answer those like separately or whichever way you want.
Sorry, can you just repeat the first part? The connection just went out a little bit. I didn't hear the
Sure.
first part.
The first one is basically just how is your life after you've kind of left Islam and you're no longer a believing Muslim? And second of all, your message to anyone struggling with something similar that you've been through.
Okay. I would say my life has gotten a lot better because now I'm free of like my family. I'm free of like the person who basically had resolved to basically try and keep me down in my life and to try and hurt me, try and erase my existence, and the person who, even looking back on my childhood, realizing that somebody who never really had that higher regard for me or my desires for life in general, and who never, I would say, never really wanted me to get ahead in life. So just
Wow.
being free of that in and of itself is liberating. By the way, sorry, I'm referring to my mother specifically, just in case it's
Yeah,
not
I
clear.
gathered. Yeah,
Yeah.
but nice. Thank you.
So yeah, so just being free of that in and of itself is extremely liberating. I'd also say my life is better because I can be a lot more honest and open about myself with myself, as well as to other people, and just be able to socialize, make friends, and just interact with people on a much smoother and much easier level than I'd ever been able to as a child. And that in and of itself like brings a lot more benefits than people realize. Just realizing that going from a background where you're quite used to being hated and kind of being treated with indifference to suddenly having people who care about you all around you, that does make
Yeah.
much more of a difference than most people realize, and it's something that should not be taken for granted. Um, Sorry, can you just read the second part of the question, please?
Yeah, and I'm first of all amazing. I'm so happy to hear that your life is going so well. And honestly, personally speaking, if your creativity is a reflection of how epic you are doing, then that literally speaks volumes for itself. So just a little round of applause from me. But the other one, honestly, we can hold this question. Because I'm sure somebody in the comments has alluded to this as well, but I just wanted to ask, like, what would you say to somebody who's kind of going through where you were when you were in your mid-20s, kind of going through this entire like process of leaving Islam behind and dealing with the consequences and realizing all the things and how it's so against who you are as a person and actually who you are physically as well.
I would say, well, if you're like coming from a religious background yourself and you have doubts, I would say look into those doubts and think of them as questions, and then try to get those questions actually answered by both sources from within your religion and from outside of your religion, and then just like compare them side by side to each other and see which one actually matches reality better. And if you've already decided that your religion is wrong for you, then first of all, I'd say get yourself to a safe space with fellow ex believers who can help you, even if they're not kind of like qualified, like professional therapists or anything like that, but who can just give you guidance and advice on how to deal with like the nitty gritty details of life. So let's say, for example, like you're from a background where like you're a man and you never learned how to cook because like your background says, oh, only women can do that. Like get yourself to somebody who is all right with like men learning how to cook, and then let them teach you if they can teach you, or like encourage you to learn how to do that. Just as a really brief example, and also as well as helping you to recover from emotional trauma. If you have any issues with your immigration status, anything like that, protection from domestic violence, rehousing, stuff like that. And I'd say do that before telling any members of your like, old religious community around you. Like if you are going to tell them, you don't have to. Don't feel obliged to. I mean, I did, but I would recommend that do what you feel is right for you, whether you tell others or not. Build up your knowledge and your self-esteem to be able to rebut religious people if they feel like picking a fight with you. Do not let anyone intimidate or guilt trip or threaten you into staying quiet. And if you can, take up martial arts and self-defense classes too.
Hey, I love that last bit, especially. Yeah, I think this is honestly great advice. Honestly, you put that really well. So thank you for sharing that, and I hope that does resonate with whoever's out there going through something similar. Um, so yeah, thank you so much. That concludes my round of questions for you, but I know there's still some curious people out there
Mm-hmm.
with a couple of things to ask. I just wanted to give a shout out to Sultan Salatin. It's so nice to see you here. Hello, and thank you so much for stopping by. And yeah, I hope you're enjoying this, and hopefully I'll have you on soon and we'll do something like this together. Obviously, like with a women aspect to it, because we're good like that when we talk about women in Islam. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Stop Scamming Man says, what the? But I think that was maybe referring to something in the comments, so I'm not sure. Just before we go on to those other comments, Greg, thank you so much for your support. Greg says they love to say they are all one ummah, but won't hold their parents accountable for racism and prejudice, especially South Asian and Arab Muslims. I totally agree with that. I see racism and bigotry and prejudice within my own family, and you are sometimes considered the weird one if you call it out. If the entire family isn't as progressive as you genuinely are considered the weird one, which is like, how ingrained is this in our psyche, and where in our culture does it tell us to be like this? For me today, a harsh and sad reality was the fact that One Tawny Stranger mentions growing up in a neighborhood surrounded by Pakistanis and experiencing what you did. Like, that really makes me sick to my stomach. And again, I profusely apologize. That I don't know what it is about some of these cultures or the mentality, but honestly, reading about Islam's view and treatment of Black people as well really made me understand like how far back and deep seated this whole like thing goes. And then the complex with like the British coming to colonialize India, and that whole complex of like having fairer skin as opposed to dark. Like, we still are fighting these battles on the daily, like back in these countries.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, would you like to comment on that?
Not very much. Yeah, just saying that. Yeah, a lot of these issues like also affect very much the Afro Caribbean and kind of like the Afro diasporan community, especially in the Americas. But I'm seeing it now also affecting like Africans, like increasingly. There's a lot higher prevalence of like Nigerians, especially like bleaching their skin and things like that. And
Yeah,
you can literally see that it's damaging their skin. I can
so
literally,
dangerous. Yeah.
yeah, you can literally see like when they're like getting rashes on their skin, like from using all of these products, but they just keep doing it because they think it will make them be seen as more attractive, more intelligent, more successful, more whatever.
Hmm.
It's really, honestly,
Yeah.
it's quite painful to watch.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. I saw a documentary about that, and I just like, I was squirmish throughout. Like, when they would do it, I'm like, no. Like, also the lengths they go to, to get like there's like certain types of bleach that some of these women are like eagerly waiting for. Like they're actually preparing for months that they're going to go
Mm.
purchase this and their life's going to change. It was just it's actually hard to watch.
Yeah, and even when they
Okay.
enforce it on their children as well, I'm literally, well, not just reading about it, but also seeing it as well. A lot of them
Yeah.
give some kind of, I think it's a tablet or something. I'm not completely sure, but it's some kind of edible product
Hmm.
that so is designed to like bleach the skin. But they feed it to their children, like pre-verbal children, like 1, 2 year old children. Like you can see like their skin colors like fading, even as they're like growing up. It's
Oh
just like
my
wow.
God. That is
Yeah,
crazy. Yeah, that's so, so bad. But yeah, again, see, it's like it crosses cultures. It's just like a very, very deep-seated problem, but we need to call it out wherever we see it. We need to speak up. You cannot tolerate that. You can't be in an environment where that's happening in front of you and you stay silent. Like it's just not okay in this day and age. But
exactly.
it's so refreshing to be able to talk to somebody from your background even and both agree on the fact that Islam absolutely doesn't help in this sense at all. Like that is something I can rarely like share with people and discuss because, well,
Mm.
obviously people around me don't even accept this as a fact. They're still like, oh, slavery was da da da, it was Islam weaned it out. No, look what they actually did. Look what the Europeans learned from them. But okay,
Exactly.
we could talk about this till the cows come home. I
Yeah.
I will pull up some comments because I feel like I've lost so many in the process. But I think I wanted to pull up one specifically first because I feel like, here we go. Robert Mitchell says, I'm an ex-Muslim. My parents are from Trinidad.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Uh-huh. I thought you'd like to see somebody from like a similar background. And Robert followed up with the Muslims of Trinidad are just 5%. The Christian and Hindus are the majority, and yet the Muslims have equal rights. Even Eid is a public holiday. Okay. I
Mm.
didn't know that. Did you know anything about this?
I didn't know about Trinidad specifically,
Mm.
but I do know that Islam is actually spreading in the Caribbean. Even as I was growing up and going on holiday to Barbados and Jamaica, um, I actually met a Salafi community in Barbados, of all places.
What?
Yeah,
That is
I
not
actually
what I'm expecting to see when I go holidaying in Barbados.
I know, right? Yeah, yeah. Me and my family, we literally stayed among them, not directly with them, but kind of near them. Like we were going to the masjid with them and everything. And even the
Oh,
imam actually invited us around to his house and everything. So, like, oh my god! And
bloody hell.
likewise in
Yeah.
Jamaica, we also met a Muslim community there. They were not Salafis, thankfully. Uh,
Mm.
they were just honestly, they were like brand new converts, so they were still learning about Islam, but they were a lot more open-minded and a lot more sociable and easier to get on with than the ones in Barbados. A lot.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, also because they weren't Salafi, that probably helped.
Yeah, exactly.
um, oh yeah, okay. So I'm just gonna scroll through these and see. This was relating to your story earlier, but it would just be interesting to know because I didn't want to stop you then. But Lau Matal, I don't know if I'm saying that right, sorry. Did you have any contact with your non-Muslim extended family growing up?
I did because most of my family are here in London as well. Although I have to admit that contact actually got less and less as I grew up. Um, that's probably just natural anyway amongst most families. But
Mhm.
yeah, I did have contact with them as I was, especially kind of before I became a teenager. That's when most of the contact was. But as I kind of reached my teens and then 20s and stuff, that contact gradually kind of got less and less. But throughout all of that time, like they'd always known me as a very, very strict Muslim. So they always kind of related to me on that basis. In fact, even as I was a child, one of my uncles actually came up to me and said that he'd been reading the Quran and he didn't understand it at all. It literally baffled the hell out of him.
Oh
And I
my
remember trying
gosh.
to explain it to him as a child. I was just like, "Oh, the Quran is this, the Quran is that," and then, but now looking back on it, and now also having read the Bible myself, well, I'm now
Mhm.
in the process of reading the Bible. I'm now looking back on that conversation. I'm thinking, no, you know what? He was right. Compared to the Bible, the Quran is baffling as shit.
Yeah, it is. Are you reading the King James version? What are you reading?
It is the. Hold on, let me just get it out.
Yeah. Sorry, it's so hot in this room. God.
The New King James Version.
The New King James. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. That yeah, mate, the Quran is like doesn't even come close.
Exactly. For a start, it's in
It's so
chronological order.
random. Yeah, that helps. That little bit of detail. Thank you, Allah. And then you're chucking in things like abrogation and
Yeah.
flipping heck, context, the what's it called? Asbab al-nuzul or something. The
Yeah.
reason for
Yeah.
bloody hell. And you say it's a simple book.
Exactly.
um,
At least the
no, I felt
Christians and
this
Jews keep track of their own history, even if it is incorrectly.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. This was just a funny comment earlier I saw, but so, I guess wow, in the Caribbean there's a Muslim population too. Lol, like this is actually, I guess, news to some people. You know, you don't think
Mhm.
of the Caribbean and think Muslims or Islam. It is just the way it is.
Exactly. Although I do have to mention actually,
Mm.
kind of extending on from when I was talking about the Salafis in Barbados, um, a lot of the a lot of the like, Islamic influence that's kind of growing in the Caribbean now is coming from like Saudi Arabia. So you are getting like the direct Salafi and Wahhabi influence there as well. That is actually on the increase there now as well.
Oh, okay. And why is that? Do you know?
Because Saudis, like well, Wahhabis and Salafis, they're basically just trying to take over like
Wow,
everywhere in the world.
okay.
So any little presence they can make, even in the most kind of remote places in the world that people wouldn't think of, like, yep, they want to
Mhm.
be there. It's kind of like the way
Wow.
Christian missionaries are doing it. They're kind of learning from Christian missionaries.
Yeah, they're really picking up this almost the same tactics because yeah, that wow, I didn't realize that their reach extended so far at the
Oh
moment.
yeah,
That's really interesting. Well, I mean, this entire conversation has been like enlightening and eye-opening to me on so many levels. Um, and this was just a comment from the Afro-humanist, but I was like fully agreed earlier when you were talking about that Nigerian couple proselytizing to you while you were talking to them essentially effectively about your suicide attempt. And the Afro-humanist says they should leave their religion at home. Basically, any therapist who starts
mm.
proselytizing isn't a great one, and I fully agree. Um, okay, I just want to see which other comments I found, and then I'll check the comments. I haven't unscrolled all the way up. Um, Somebody asked me your thoughts on the Netflix show The Caliphate, which I haven't seen or know about. So I'm just wondering if you do. Because do you
I
know about that show?
To be honest, I've never heard of it, so I can't comment at all.
Okay, yeah, same here.
Sorry
I
about that.
actually haven't heard of that. Um, okay, Mr. Magic was just saying earlier, meditation helps me with battling stress and anxiety. Taking black seed oil and vitamin D is also beneficial in helping with these problems. Yeah, I agree. All three of those things are good. It's just so funny because Islam says black seeds are like they cure everything but death. So it's so
Yeah.
when I actually admit to its benefits, I'm like, okay, well, Muhammad was right about something, but I mean, it's not going to cure everything but death, but it's pretty close, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
It
okay,
helps that I like
sorry.
black seed oil as well, so yeah.
Yeah, same, ditto. Um, Boring commented, Islam is more racist than anything. I I see that because I looked into it and I saw it for what it was, and I would say Islam is extremely racist.
Mm,
In terms of on one side, like Arab superiority, even the Prophet said things like, "I am the best of the Quraysh. I am like, you know,
mm,
the most Arab amongst you. I have been suckled by the so and so of Banu Qurayza." Like, Banu, sorry, not Banu Qurayza. Scratch that. Quraysh. Um, but yeah, and then on the opposite side, I mean, like calling the Abyssinian ruler at the time like a black raisin is just it's in the hadith. Like that was despicable to me. I don't know how a man can be called the final prophet of the most merciful and loving and forgiving God who makes statements like that. It's just, yeah. But feel free to comment as well, One Tawny Stranger, if you want.
And likewise as well. Even sorry, even after Muhammad's time, like when the Arabs were setting up their empire, the Arabs they were also racist against white people as well, because they saw. Basically, they didn't really distinguish between Europeans and East Asians. They saw them as all the same people. The only difference they kind of really bothered to make between them was that some of them have yellow hair and some of them have quote unquote small eyes. And that was about all the differentiation they cared to make.
What? That is crazy.
So it was just against everybody who wasn't Arab.
Yeah, precisely. And that's why a lot of, we see this problem as well, like manifest itself today in a country like Pakistan, which has been built on this idea of religion. It was like the largest migration in history in the name of religion to form a new country. And they have a severe complex, because if you look back in our history, we go back not even that far back, and we're just India. It's one big country, but we as a nation, like Pakistan, tries to cling on to this concept of either Arabness and Arab history, or when that's not working out for them or tensions are heightened, it's like, oh, we're Turkish originally, or like we latch onto that because it was like the Ottoman Empire and the last known caliphate, and we just kind of, anywhere we're welcomed, we will latch onto them as long as they have some Islamic connection. It's a massive inferiority complex, and I genuinely think like Islam definitely like helps fuel that.
Very much the case. Even amongst Africans, like when I was in uni, I can remember this example of this guy. I don't remember whether he was Yemeni who was born in Somalia or a Somali who was born in Yemen, one of the two, I've forgotten. But he outright said that he would never, ever, ever marry a Somali woman. He absolutely hates Somali women, and he's going to make sure he only marries either an Asian or an Arab woman because they are more Islamic, quote unquote.
Oh my day.
I was just like, this is a self-hating guy right here.
Talk about self-loathing to the next
he was
level.
He was so passionate and so he was just so fired up in talking about this. You could tell, like, this is not a joke. He really hates Somali women.
Oh my god, it's self-deprecating like your own people. So this. Sorry, go ahead. Do you want to say
that's right. I was just going to ask you if there are any other comments or questions from anybody else.
Yep. Okay, let me just run through these real quick because we've been here for an hour and a half now, and it's getting late, and I'll let you go. Okay, this might seem so. Vitor Emmanuel, she's asking, where did the Caribbean Muslims come from? I think you've kind of touched on this in your explanations. But there was, I think, a follow-up comment relating to maybe his own country, where he said, we've had Muslim slaves here in Brazil. They were forced to convert and their heritage was lost. We've had a rebellion of Muslim slaves here. It was suppressed.
That is true, actually, yes. Again, because Islam did actually reach Africa in like the very, very early stages. So even a lot of the Africans were taken over to the Americas. I think the statistics were that roughly somewhere between a third and a half of them were Muslim, but they were forced to stop practicing Islam alongside like all the pagans and stuff because it was all seen as like kind of non-Christian and therefore heretic and evil and all the rest. So that is true, but many of us, well, actually pretty much all of us, kind of lost that connection to like all of our culture, before the transatlantic slave trade, whether it was Muslim or pagan or whatever else. So some of us have kind of looked into the history and kind of like revived it, but pretty much most of the influence of Islam in modern days is just coming straight from just kind of brand new conversions, people who are just fed up with Christianity, really, and just looking for alternatives. And especially if they find that there were Muslims like amongst like their ancestors or amongst like the Africans who were brought to the Americas, that might make it more appealing to them and make them think like, oh yeah, Islam is the religion for me because it was good enough for my ancestors. Not that kind of mentality. So yes, that does play into it.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, and that's really interesting. I didn't know about this, so this is really, really informative. And similarly, I think Doorknob Head says Muslims in the Caribbean was news to me, but I think I recently saw an article called "A Minority Within a Minority Within a Minority" that talked about it. So yeah, I mean, again, I think today we just, well, you've informed me and taught me so much, but I think we've like just the fact that you're highlighting this, I think a lot of people will also fall into this category in their own way as well, and they'll realize that they're in their own right a minority within a minority within a minority, which is why I think you people, anyone who's a minority within a minority within a minority, would definitely get preference on this platform to like come and speak out and share your story just the way you did, to kind of like just embolden these voices and get these like shared experiences out there. So for instance, D Pakistani Fight says, I reckon a lesbian, trans, Salafi imam qualifies as a minority within a minority within a minority. Indeed, that definitely qualifies. Hell yes. Gosh. Yeah, so I think this is a really kind of good way to, I don't know, it just does grab your attention in terms of wanting to listen to this experience, because it does seem like the voice of the voiceless at the moment, you know? Anyway,
So.
I'm just gonna see. D Pakistani Fight said again, all humans are inherently racist. You can't really call Muslims out for that. I disagree. I don't think humans are inherently racist. I think racism is taught. So, but I think you're also, I think in a previous comment, Deepak Sanified said they were a Muslim, but they think that Muhammad is a bit of a dick. I'm sorry if that's not what you said, but I saw it somewhere up here. And you said, if we mind you being on our channel, not at all. Like, you are the kind of people, if this is you and you are Muslim and you do think that, you know, the Prophet could have messed up somewhere along the line, please, like, you're more than welcome on this channel. We just want you to hear these conversations, and, you know, don't take our word for granted. Go and look into it yourself. But these are just varied experiences of people who have come to their own conclusions, but we've come to those conclusions based on certain things. And the fact that you're willing to hear those things and interact with us is amazing. So again, thank you so much for coming here. I definitely don't agree with this comment of yours. Do you have anything to say on this comment, One Tawny Stranger?
I would also completely disagree as well. Especially saying that you can't call Muslims or Islam out for that. Well, if they are being racist, then they should be called out for it, regardless of who they are.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Even if they're not the only ones that are propagating racism, even if they're not, the fact that they are is reason enough for them to be called out. Like, it's as simple as that.
Exactly.
Okay. Oh, this is just okay, that's just a really unfortunate story of someone trying to commit suicide by drinking bleach. Yeah, but thank you for sharing that, Mr. Magic. Obviously, that's insanely horrible. Like, I'm just reading that and I was like, what? He even sent me pictures of it. It was 2 years. Okay. The fact that you said he tried makes me hope that obviously it was unsuccessful and this person is still around, living and breathing amongst us, and hopefully in a better place. But as we did touch on, like, various aspects of therapy today, I would always say, like, no matter, we do have reservations about it for our own reasons. One Tawny Stranger mentioned his very justified reasons for being kind of just wary of it. I had my own reservations about, you know, sitting on a sofa talking to someone about my problems. But the advice would always be to definitely speak to somebody or seek help. Like always, that's always the best. Don't go through this alone ever, and don't think that you have to. And I think One Tawny Stranger has definitely taught us that tonight. Like even if there was one person that you think would be so devastated and not be able to go on without you, that's sometimes reason enough for you to think twice about your life and your decisions, and that it can all be so much better than you believe it is in the moment. Okay, I'm just checking if we have any more questions, and then we can honestly wrap up, because yeah, you've been amazing and I've taken so much of your time. I'll just highlight this. Tough Gong says, did any of you see the comments of Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi saying that only Arabs are the original Muslims with roots going back to Muhammad's time? I haven't seen MBS's comments on this, to be honest, but that's really intriguing to me that he did say something like that. It's not surprising, but I would be really interested to see those comments, so I will look into that. Have you seen anything about this, One Tawny Stranger?
I have not, but to be honest, it does make sense.
Yeah.
Having said that, we do also know about the non-Arab Sahaba, like Salman, Bilal, etc. So we know that's not completely true, but there is a grain of truth to it anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, I'm just seeing if there's anything. This was for you earlier. Greg was asking if you spent time in England. He doesn't have a Trinidadian accent. Well, you definitely have spent time in England. You mentioned you were born here and lived here, and also that you're from Jamaica. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Not from Trinidad at all, Jamaican.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. I'm just checking if there's any Caribbean specific questions related to Islam, because I saw some. Of this, I really wanted to highlight. Stop Scamming Man had said earlier that Muslim apologists have no shame about the Islamic slave trade at all. And I fully agree. And honestly, this is something that really, really pissed me off when I learned about it, because this honestly factored in so much into how I felt I had been lied to. Because how do you lie about such a gigantic portion of history like this? Or how do you keep people in the dark about it? Why is it that we have to go and do independent? Okay, sex slavery is still there, but when you're saying that, you're actually having slaves in general, I mean, sex slavery is bad enough, but like realizing that there was an entire slave trade that existed prior to the Atlantic slave trade, like, do you understand? Like that honestly, it floored me completely. I can't stress that enough. And okay, last thing I'll highlight again is Stop Scanning Man. Thank you so much for your super chat and your support throughout the day today. But Stop Scanning Man says the Quran 3106 sounds really racist. I don't know what Quran 3106 is. I kind of want to check it now. And I will check that. Hold on one second. I'm just going to put it up and see what it is. Okay.
Yes, I got it.
Yeah, you got it?
On the day, some faces will turn white and some faces will turn black. As for those whose faces turn black, to them it will be said, did you disbelieve after your disbelief? Then taste the punishment for what you used to reject.
Wow. Yeah. See, this is what gets me. Like, this is why in my video I said that when Muhammad Ali made like really good points, and he was equating everything in that time in America to like, why is everything? Oh, sorry. Let me stop sharing this. Thank you so much for sharing that, Stop Scamming Man, because yeah, this is what I'm alluding to. When when Muhammad Ali was saying, why are all good things attributed to white and everything bad and related to the devil and evil are considered black? Like little things like angel cake is white, devil cake is black. And then that just like blackmail, white lie, they have completely different connotations. But this stuff in the Quran, like it's not just the Quran here is pretty straight up, but even in the Hadith, for example, they have I think Muhammad says if a black spot appears on someone's face or on someone's body, like they're under the the spell of the evil eye, or they've got an evil eye on them. So that there are so many instances where black is attributed to evil, like black dogs are meant to be killed. Anything like and then like the black race and comment on, there's enough within that to make you realize what the Arab viewpoint was of black people at that time. And the fact, this is what really again pissed me right off, was the fact that they try and use Bilal as their poster boy when he really cannot be what they're trying to use him to be.
Yeah,
you know?
And then also on top of that, the fact that I have seen various ahadith that try to describe like the appearance of Muhammad. Some outright describe him as a white man. Some describe him as, well, brown, like various shades of brown. But there are also many hadith that very strongly go out of their way to absolutely deny and denounce any kind of similarity between Muhammad and black people. Like there is one hadith that directly just says that anybody who has a dream about Muhammad and sees Muhammad as black in that dream, let that person know that he was actually dreaming of shaitan.
Oh my God. And I think the other day I was reading a hadith with, I think it might have been on the Sunday Scoop with Haris Sultan, where there was a hadith saying, if anybody calls the Prophet black, he must be killed.
Yeah.
So you can't get clearer than this. Like, it's just, it really does need to be kind of called out at the root level. I cannot, but this helped me so much, because a religion, like you mentioned, the violence earlier, a religion that was already like desecrating women's position in society and in like the world, that was enough for me. But then on top of that, the violence and then this inherent racism just made it so obvious that it wasn't divine or eternal or timeless or something I should even be respectful of or proud of as I used to be. Philly goes down, that's racist. Yeah. Last thing, just because it's relevant to what we were talking about, and then we can head off.
Well, actually, I'd just like also to finish up with some poetry as well, with one of my spoken word pieces or two.
Oh, okay, that would be absolutely fantastic. Yeah. Just wanted to get your thoughts on this. Tough Gong says, in East Africa, they are taught as the original slave drivers were the Arabs, who arrived way before the white man ever got there. In East Africa, they are taught as the original slave drivers were the Arabs. Oh, are they taught that? Because
I didn't realize they were actually taught that. Okay.
Yeah, that's the first I'm hearing of this as well, to be honest, because when I was trying to make that video about Islamic slavery, and I was looking into African authors who discuss Islam's slave trade, many of them don't. And many of them, even if they do believe it as fact, haven't written about it publicly because they're, just scared of the backlash. So this is news to me. I didn't know that, or if that is the case, but thank you for sharing that. Mr. Magic says, I realize Muslims slam their own women for not covering up, chatting to other boys, etc. But when a white girl does it, they literally love it. Exactly. It's literally double standards, and can go all the way back into the Quran to like how Muslim women should behave and how all other women can behave. So yeah, that's just part and parcel of Islam. Oh, okay. Calling Ethiopians raisin heads was pretty racist, even for Muhammad. Exactly. That's what I thought when I read it. I was like, did he actually say that? Like, Muhammad is black, at least his heart was. Well, that's the thing, Doorknob, because he mentions that when your heart is inflicted, like you said, when it's the shaitan getting, into your head or into your heart, that your heart turns black. Again, the association there is so clear and vivid and obvious.
Yep.
That it's just hard to deny. Okay. Oh, stop scamming, man. Look after yourself. We all love you. We do indeed. Okay, guys, I am gonna not kind of take any more comments because we've definitely, I think, taken a lot of One Tawny Stranger's time. So over to you, One Tawny Stranger. Whatever you'd like to say, whatever you'd like to recite for us, we're here for it all day, every day. But yeah, just introduce it and feel free to do your thing, and then I'll give the closing remarks and we can head.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's been going on so long, I won't take up too much more of everybody's time, so I'll just do one of my poems. This one is called The Orphan's Legacy. So this one was basically just inspired by, well, just basically about Muhammad himself and kind of the way Islam has impacted much of the world around him ever since he fostered Islam onto all of us.
Beautiful. I'm already so excited. Lego.
And you haven't heard this one yet, so this is going to be a new one to you as well.
I know. I haven't heard this one yet, but I was just thinking in my head as well. The other one is so brilliant. Can we please do that at some point?
Okay, yeah. Okay, on another video, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, but yeah, go ahead. Sorry, it's all yours now. I'm going to mute myself.
Okay. Oh, and just one little comment for anybody who's not an Arabic speaker. The word yatim means orphan. The orphan's legacy. They make us yatim, scapegoat us for their strife, to sustain their half-life. They make us yatim. Family's all we know, still the nuke's about to blow. They make us yatim. From the orphan's legacy, fired from the birthright owed to we, they make us yatim. Dad is king, mum is queen, it's all you've ever known. Food, water, shelter, a palace to call home. Space to be yourself, yet never alone. Under the eyes of the Almighty, on his throne. Love is a birthright, no need to contend. God and family got your back from beginning to end. Born in the true faith, every submitter's a friend. But engage with society, you see it's all pretend. The values you were raised on no longer ring truthful. Soon you come to learn you spent your youth full of fear of hell, fear of sin, fear of parents' disapproval. You yearn to break free, but you know the fear is useful. Maybe not consciously, but deep down you know, giving voice to your doubt is a big no-no. Banished to the streets or laid 6 feet low. Is this really how family's supposed to go? They make us yatim, scapegoat us for their strife, to sustain their half-life. They make us yatim. Family's all we know, still the nuke's about to blow. They make us yatim, from the orphan's legacy, fired from the birthright owed to we. They make us yatim. Eerie little factoid you discover, please save. Family is from famulus, which is Latin for slave. Slaves were beaten and killed if they dared misbehave. For unruly children, birthright to love is waived. Synapses short-circuit, veins crinkle and fold. Food, water, shelter all turn to fool's gold. Affection is conditional, the conditions no longer hold. Your parents don't love you. Damn, that is cold. But you want to excuse them, make them feel justified. Why are you like this, the only apostate worldwide? Questions lead to quests, and although terrified, you embark on the journey, let your eyes open wide. The dysfunction began about 7,000 years back. Our greed for progress sent relationships out of whack. No faith in self-rule, we invested in the maniac, our neurological wealth, and now we're all living the payback. They make us yatim, scapegoat us for their strife, to sustain their half-life. They make us yatim. Family's all we know, still the nuke's about to blow. They make us yatim, from the orphan's legacy, fired from the birthright owed to we. They make us yatim. Empire came intruding on domestic affairs, imposing hierarchy on households that weren't theirs. Men devolved into gods, enslaved their wives and heirs. Ancient god kings became modern nightmares, and most modern cultures descend from those times, formed by Southwest Asian wannabe emperor minds, including one Qurayshi Arab whose parents both died, but his family values still live, as he prophesied. Now the orphan's legacy flows in all our veins. Africa, Asia, Europe forced to share labor pains, housing in their wombs Qurayshi Arab orphan brains, strangers to true love, but needing it all the same. So fellow believers became the new kith and kin, a hard line between religiosity and sin. But that line softens and dissolves the longer it stays in reality. So, to save themselves from chagrin, they make us yatim, scapegoat us for their strife, to sustain their half-life. They make us yatim. Family's all we know, still the nuke's about to blow. They make us yatim, from the orphan's legacy, fired from the birthright owed to we. They make us yatim. Told to move on, but how? That's ignoble. Forgive and forget, that's damn near impossible. For our misfortune, submitters want us responsible. But stay true to the quest, you'll become uncrossable. Ski in the contradiction between love and loyalty. Hope and upbringing become mismatched moieties. Ebb and flow of emotion for your nuclear royalty. Yet they sail on regardless, you better evolve your buoyancy. Keep your head up, above,
the crimson tides of lineage, hemoglobin smelted into chains of peonage. But there are others like you only need to envisage, like minds your new Makkah, make exile a pilgrimage. The boom of theism is drawing to a bust. Humans now remembering they decide what's just. Avoid conditional love like radioactive dust. Decide your kith and kin from among people worth your trust. They make us yatim, solidarity through strife. Togetherness is life. They make us yatim. Disarm the nuke so the human race can regrow. They make us yatim, but don't worry, you see. Stand aside as we launch a new birthright and prophesize new legacy. No longer yatim. Thank you.
Thank you. That was bloody brilliant. I just feel like I need to cue in an applause like thing behind me. That was, I mean, honestly, you took me on a journey, and the whole time that the repetition of the yatim and the poignancy and significance, and also I just want to show you some of the appreciation that you're getting. Like, this isn't just me gassing you, yeah? Like, even when I met you and I was like, mate, that's so good. I'm not gassing you. This is what people are saying. And I know you're not into this. You are into spoken poetry, not into rapping. I fully get that. Wasn't me. Someone said, I think the caller should become a rapper. Wasn't me. Okay, don't get cross. But because I did say that to him once, and he did put me in my place, and I was like, yes, you're right. But then Mr. Magic, 100, I fully agree. Leachim says, sorry if I mispronounced that, he would become rich overnight. Those are deadly lyrics. Stop scamming, man, says, better than the poems I had to study at school. Hells yes. Dawn of Head says, wowzers. Rhymed religiosity, 10 points just for that.
Wow, thank you.
You're getting applauses. He would be bigger than Eminem. What?
Oh, wow. Shit, okay, thank you.
And Mr. Magic is correcting himself now and saying, if not a rapper, then a DJ. I definitely would still say, no, your spoken poetry is way better use than being a DJ. We would not, like, honestly, what you do, like, with your words, I would say you're low-key like a lyrical genius. You don't know it.
Thank you.
Yeah, for real. And also, just to kind of round up everything, whether it was your creative kind of urge, that switch in you, that need to create, you feeling in the zone, all of that, I'm so grateful that it pushed you to excel and you left Islam behind for this, because had you not, we would never have been blessed with hearing something like that. And you just wouldn't be this person that we're speaking to today. So thank you so much for A, overcoming everything you have, and B, for following what it was that's true to you, and like giving us a taste of that here today, and for sharing your story. I hope it was cathartic in a way for you, and I hope everybody listening that you enjoyed it. Everybody that supported this chat tonight and got involved, thank you so much. It means the world. And yeah, over to you, One Tawny Stranger. Thank you so much for everything. Is there anything you'd like to say before we go?
Yeah, just thank you once again for having me on your show, and thank you for everybody commenting, listening, watching, and for all of your support. Thank every single one of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I mean, you're getting applauses, and you beat the Quran challenge as well, apparently. So please, can you make a promise to people live on here that you'll come back and give us some more of your spoken poetry? Because I could listen to that all day, mate.
All right, cool. I've got some other poems up my sleeve, and I'm getting back into my spoken word as well. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, guys, awesome. So I mean, is there any way, are you contactable if anybody wants to contact you in terms of anything to do with this, or is just this?
To be completely honest, I'm not on social media anymore. But if you want to contact me, you can contact me on my email address, onetawnystranger@hotmail.co.uk.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think it would just be good for, who knows, whatever comes out of this conversation, or anybody that's resonated with your experience, or is just, intrigued by you and your story. So yeah, once again, thank you so much, and cheers everyone for watching. It's kind of late even here in England, so we're gonna get some sleep and get ready for the week ahead. Love and light to all of you. Yeah, and that's about it. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you soon with another video. I've got loads of things coming up, so stay tuned. But for now, yeah, peace and love. Bye everyone. Take care.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.